episode of Game Pass Graphic, your weekly podcast reviewing games from the Game Pass collection, bringing you 3D perspectives from varying skill range. I am the old McDonald on this farm, Andrew. With me, the weed you can't get rid of, Keith.
Hello.
And the one with a real brown thumb, Liz.
Hey guys.
And this week, I picked the game for us, and I picked Atomicrops by Birdbath Games. Atomicrops is a top-down roguelite farming simulator. It's also a bullet hell, and this game is very frantic. But I picked it because I was like, you know what? Liz has been feeling roguelites, which I will say, I apologize, everyone. This is like our third one in a row. But, I mean, I feel like this is kind of what you get when you pick, like, random indie games. So, but we'll talk about why this one is actually a little bit different. So, going around, I guess I will start. For me, this was a game because, yes, it is yet another roguelite, but this one has a very unique twist to it, and I actually thought it was really interesting, and it hooked me really well. So I am giving this a game.
If we're going to me next, I think I started this game before you did.
You did, yeah.
It has that look of like, hey, this is going to be a Keith type of game. It was new on it. It was new on Game Pass, and yeah, I got hooked right into it. It's roguelite, so duh, I'm already in. I like the twin stick bullet shooter, and the added level of the farming experience in it I think is really cool, and it makes it very unique. So definitely a game.
I'm going to give it a game as well, but when I first started playing this, like, it took me quite a few hours to actually not, like, hate this game. I thought it was I felt like I'd been playing it for 30 hours, and I thought it was so tedious, and then something switched after I don't even know how many hours. But then I started feeling fresh and new because I feel like I was not only understanding the game more, but you're upgrading and stuff as well. And I just was really surprised that it's the opposite of most games. Most games you start out and you love it and then it gets tedious. This was the opposite. And now I'm like, oh man, we have to go to the next game for next week. So yeah, I'm going to give it a game, but it was like a slow grind at the beginning.
You know, Liz, I actually am the exact same boat as you. When I first played this too, because it's not Keith was playing it for a while, and I'm like, you know, this is another Keith game. And I was playing it, and I was like, it just seems like it's a bunch of different types of gameplay kind of mashed together. And I thought everything just wasn't great.
Restarting farming is brutal. Especially, like, if you have a good run and you have the farm animals and stuff, then you have a bad one, you're just like, I just don't want to plant anymore.
But, yeah, I think that's what happened with me is, like, once I noticed the things, how they were supposed to work together and it clicked for me pretty good. And I was just like, okay, no, I like this game. Yeah. But I was the same way where I'm just like, this is really boring and slow.
Well, it does one of those things that you find where there's really no tutorial to it. You get...
Yes, the tutorial's wicked basic.
Intro, and it's like, hey, here's how you shoot your gun. Here's how you plant a crop. Good luck. It doesn't tell you.
Yeah, the tutorials is just controls, honestly. It's just controls and not really how to play the game.
Yeah, so without having any real background into it, you're just thrown into the fire on it. And so your first instinct is to be like overwhelmed because it feels like there's a lot to do because there are a lot of moving parts to it, but it ends up being not so complicated once you actually understand all the mechanics. And I think that's what you guys ran into, where at the beginning you're like, this is kind of boring. Just run, shoot, die, repeat. But then when you get all these additional things coming into play, it becomes so much more than that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So if you are checking this game out, give it a little bit of time, and it might click with you as it did with us.
Well, I feel like, I mean, I didn't do that for this game. That's why I had so much trouble getting into it. But I would really recommend looking some stuff up before you play it. Because I feel like I would have loved it so much more where, like, I know, like, what chickens do. I know, like, what areas have, like, you know what I mean? So, like, for me, I would recommend some spoilers and YouTube videos.
Yeah. So, getting into this, as we said, you know, so the story for this game is very light. Once again, this is a game that the story, literally for this game, is a means to an end. Because all you have is an opening cinematic, which, by the way, one of my all-time favorite opening cinematics.
It was dark. You're like, it's a really light story. It was dark.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's very cheeky.
Except for if you think about it, if it was real. Like, you know, it's a cartoony.
Real. The intro cinematic is clearly making fun of every other kind of farming simulator game out there.
Yeah.
Where, hey, you're a city slicker guy and you inherited your dead uncle's farm and you're clearly like, yay, good for me. You throw away your uncle's ashes right away. It's very funny. To me, it was just.
It was funny.
It was
It's such
cheeky.
a good moment. It was. Cheeky is the best, description of it. But they like with the animations of everything. Well, it's funny,
and it's funny because that animation is nowhere else in the game. It's like a 60-second clip at the beginning of the game to give you this intro to the game, and ultimately, really has nothing to do with anything as far as the overall storyline goes. I think they did it purely, as you said, just as a joke, just to poke fun at other farm management, kind of style games, and I think that was really funny. Because it is that, but it's so far different than any of those at the same time.
I will say, though, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of a story to this game. I liked the setup. Granted, I'm not faulting this game not having a story, but I wish I understood more. My biggest complaint is I wish this game had an encyclopedia. I wish it had like a codex or something that I could look up and, see past enemies I fought, past perks I picked up, what do animals do. Because the fact that we were complaining about this game doesn't explain anything, it would have been nice if there was some sort of codex to actually dive deep more into it. And I like the backstory. Like, why am I shooting bunnies? Why are bunnies the main enemy? So I kind of wish there was, because I also feel like if they had an encyclopedia, it would have been really funny.
I mean, I will say, though, that when you're buying something or you're selecting something, because usually, like, if you kill an enemy, sometimes you'll get to choose between, like, a chicken or a cow or a drone or a scarecrow, and it does have like a little thing about like what it is. But I mean, if you're running around, it's hard, you know what I mean. Sometimes you have to select things very quickly, so if you're just starting out, it can be frustrating.
It just kind of stinks because there's very few slow moments in this game. When you are out in the wilderness, there are bullets just going everywhere, so when you find a perk, you have to walk over it, and it gives it like a quick description of what it is. But I mean, you sometimes don't have time to read. You got to grab something because bullets are coming at you. So that's why I wish there was an encyclopedia so I could look at the things on my own time, see what the item looks like. So if I see it again, be like, cool, I want that, and kind of plan a strategy.
See, I wish that there was a mini map during the boss fights.
Oh yeah,
that was awful. I mean, you can't even see where like the boss is because they hide from you sometimes if you're doing really well. I thought that was so annoying, where you can't really move the camera to see.
I don't really have any issue with that. I feel like everything you needed to see was happening on screen. And I get what you're saying as far as missing out on some of the bosses. But what I will say is that this game is like Going Under. Just find the wiki online. People have done all the work of cataloging all these things. And I agree with you, Andrew. I wish it was built into the game. I just think it would be cleaner. It would be easier and probably a little more fun. But at the same token, the information is readily available. Just Google Atomicrops wiki and you'll find the page. That's what I did for the ones that don't give a full description. After you've put in a couple hours and a couple of runs, you do start to get to a point where you don't really need the descriptions. So while I do agree that, it's sort of frantic, I found it all right because it has a nice feature too where it's not like a required online play. So you can pause the game and it actually pauses it, so you don't have to worry. Like if the game was live 100% of your active outer world runs, then by all means that would be way worse. But you can kind of take a quick look at the names of them, pause it, look up your phone, and find it on the wiki. So that's what I did a lot.
Yeah, I ended up looking up the wiki a handful of times too. But yeah, sorry, we're kind of glossing over the whole story segment because there literally is none. Yeah. So I know we're already kind of getting into the gameplay, but to explain more of the gameplay, this is a top-down twin-stick shooter roguelite where, what makes this one so different is if you look at any other roguelites that we've done, because we've done a ton of them, Going Under, Dead Cells, Undermine, heck, there's a ton. What's so different about this one is it's not a typical one where, you go into a dungeon, how far can you get in this dungeon? This game is all about, this is your farm, you are staying in one position, and you are trying to defend this area. So how the farming simulating aspect comes into this game, the farming is very quote-unquote simulator. It's very generic. You're just literally planting some crops in which you are trying to harvest to get cashews, which is the currency in the game, in order to buy guns, or to buy some spells or some animals, depending what's in the shop. And then there's also another currency of roses which is another way the game's kind of making fun of other farming simulators like Stardew Valley. You get roses to quote-unquote date some of the NPCs, but the dating literally is just, here's some roses, and then eventually you guys get married, and they become a partner that just helps you fight.
And there's 10 years. So you have the seasons, and then a nuclear winter after a regular winter. And then so, like, for instance, myself, I put many hours into it, and I got through year 1. I'm on year 2 now.
That's a good accomplishment.
Not really.
Just think, you're only 1 year behind Keith. And I'm on year 10, which is the final year.
Well, bravo.
Sorry, it's supposed to give context. You guys are giving
it's like
context.
You're doing really well. You're on year 2. I'm on year 10.
Sorry, I wanted to give the listeners some context. Sorry. Jeez.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, as Liz said, yeah, there's the 4 seasons. Each season has 3 days. At the end of each season, you fight a boss. And then at the very end, you have a nuclear winter, which you fight the same boss. And essentially, you are going out from your farm into the quote-unquote wilderness. Because, I don't know, it's a wilderness, but it's not that far from your farm. But that's where you fight majority of the enemies. And you're finding seeds to plant more. You're finding health, power-ups, perks, and so on and so forth. So with the 2 aspects of dodging and farming, what did you guys think of the gameplay?
So I think I did the opposite as you. I actually did my crops during the day because I didn't care about my trees. I just didn't want to defend it. Because when you're defending your crops, there's so many more enemies. And then you have to deal with the slugs that are attacking your crops, which aren't there during the day. So I did farming as fast as I could during the day. And then I would just, at nighttime, that's when I would go to the other areas.
Yeah. I didn't do any of that at all. I mean, so like day 1, I'd just go straight out into the wilderness. Wouldn't even bother doing any bit of farming. And from there, I would pretty much always start the day. Like I would plant my farm at the beginning in the morning, and then I would just go and come back for it at night. Because usually I try to stack as many cows as I could, so I didn't have to worry about watering my crops at all. And yeah, so I focused a lot more on fighting than I did on farming.
See, yeah, for me, it was mostly fighting as well. Because, like, I kind of learned... So the 2, like I said, the 2 currencies in this game are the cashews and the roses. There's not a lot you can spend cashews on. You can buy them on guns and whatever kind of the 3 items the shop has. But the shop had such limited items that there was very rarely things I wanted to buy.
See, money I thought was really important because upgrading your gun is so pivotal, especially one of the final bosses, like if you use I didn't have it at that time because you can only pick between 2, but there's a boss that lights your crops on fire. If you have the sriracha gun and you have to upgrade it multiple times to make it so it can water your crops, like I just felt like upgrading the guns just made combat so much simpler. So you're getting more spells, you're getting more farm animals. So for me, it was just all about the money.
It was, like, don't get me wrong, but like the first season, you get the most like crappy vegetables that are worth pennies. And for me, I'm just like, that's why I don't farm usually like too much at the beginning. But I mean, I will say it is very important to farm because at the end of every year, you get a review. And if you do well enough in the review, you get bonus rewards.
How much you fed the town.
Yeah. So it's very detrimental to you to actually go and actually try to bring in crops.
But there are also some instances where I was struggling to find certain farm animals. Like, so I didn't have any chickens and I didn't have any till spells. Like, it was a rough run. It was really bad. And so, where was I going with that?
I don't know. You do this every episode, Liz.
No, I don't. Not every episode. And it happened to you not too long ago. I would like to say that. Sorry. I know where I was going. And so you told me about the sunflower, where you plant sunflower, and if you give a bunch of fertilizer, it gives you a ton of money. So sometimes if I was doing really bad with my crops, I didn't have like the time or the spells and stuff, I would just grow a bunch of sunflowers and make money that way.
Yeah. What was up with the fertilizer? I don't know if this is bothering you guys. Is the fertilizer like blood and guts, or is it poop? Because normal fertilizer is poop, but you're literally just killing monsters and collecting it.
And it's like, what is it, pink or purple?
Yeah, it kind of looks like it's like bone in it. And I was like,
I wasn't really looking into the poop, to be honest. But I mean,
well, I'm here to ask the hard questions, so.
I didn't really think about what that was. I'm curious now.
Because also one of the spells you get is called like Blood Monsoon, and it sends a bunch of fertilizer. So it's like, am I literally sacrificing blood and guts over my vegetables to make them more like bigger.
Well,
like, this is kind
that
of
makes sense too, because one of the tractors is the wood chipper, and it pulls in all the enemies and sends them through a wood chipper. I think you're right, Andrew.
So why is it called fertilizer? They should have called it myrtleizer. Yeah.
Well, I mean, these
They
things
can
are
pay me for
shooting
that.
at you, so...
But then again, animals also produce fertilizer. So are you literally ripping off chunks of your own animal?
Now you're just... Now I don't know.
I'm asking hard questions here. But anyway, yeah, the fertilizer is very important. And I kept having to remind you, Liz, because you would always ignore it. And I'm like, no, it helps your crops quite a bit.
Yeah, the quality and everything. And if you're watering and doing a ton of fertilizer, like all at once, they grow so much faster. And that's why I actually really liked using lavender. So I think there's 5 characters in total.
Yes, there are.
I've only, well, you start with 1 and I've unlocked 1. So lavender, the crops grow 20% faster and you get 2 bees. And then, what do the bees do again?
Bees make the crops grow faster.
Yeah. And then
like
rye.
How much time you spent, and you've asked me so many times what the bees do.
Anyways, and then rye, which is like the best bread. I love this name. He has a 50% chance of he has a 50% chance of repairing the gun, and he starts with a turret. And I actually kind of wish I used him more, but I was so into like the money aspect that I primarily use lavender.
See, that's what I liked so much about having Rye, is he didn't require as much money. Having that 50% ability to keep your gun, you could dump a bunch of money into upgrading a gun, and then hold on to it for 3 or 4 seasons. And then in the meantime, you just don't pay money for anything, because like Andrew mentioned, the third shop or the other shop doesn't contain a lot. Every so often you can buy a farm animal there, but they're like absurdly priced, so you have to have a ton of the cashews in order to buy them usually. So in most cases, I'm just not spending my money on anything but the guns is the only thing I'm doing.
And the turret's amazing. I mean, having that extra gun to help you out.
The turrets are definitely helpful. They're not as helpful as I'd like them to be, but that was another reason I like to focus on the fighting aspect, at least and especially on that first day, because like Andrew said, you don't get a ton of good seeds. But that is where you get your best seeds, at least, is going out and farming like the little mini camps that are around, and even just the beeson that fly around. You can get a lot of good seeds out there, and to ideally grow some things quicker, because you might get lucky and you might get a sunflower, and then you're immediately up, a couple hundred cashews on your first run.
Overall, but did you guys actually like the farming?
I think it was all right. The only thing I didn't like is. And I actually had the same issue as playing Stardew and probably even Graveyard Keeper, and like any game like this, farming games are generally tough, at least especially in this 2D realm with a controller. They're so much better controlled by a keyboard and mouse. But outside of that, I mean, they weren't any worse than any game I'd ever played. I didn't love them though.
Yeah, that's my biggest complaint with this game is the aiming with the farming. Because it's very important that you aim properly. Because a big thing in this game is if you create a 4x4 square of the same vegetable and give them fertilizer, it becomes like a mega vegetable. And it's worth so much more money. But since this game's a twin stick shooter, you're essentially trying to aim where you're planting with the right stick. And then, left trigger does your actual like farming. And yeah, the controls were it was a little finicky on the controller. It wasn't the worst. Like, it didn't. Obviously, I got to year 10. It didn't prevent me. Like, it didn't ruin my games, but
it was pretty awful. I think it was some of the worst aiming in a game that I've seen.
Well, I've noticed you really struggle with a twin stick shooter, Liz.
Not with fighting. I got so much better with fighting.
Watching you fight was making me nauseous. Because
you said when you first started watching me,
you got better, but you don't hold the right stick. You keep flicking it to aim where you're going. So the camera is constantly shifting, and it was making me so nauseous.
Even now, I got so much better.
Yeah, now you did. Now you actually learned to
at the
hold
beginning.
it.
And then I also didn't realize that, like, every time you shot in a certain area, you're, like, picking a fight with that group.
Yeah.
And then so I was just like, why are they all following me?
You would just run. You kept running deeper and deeper into the wilderness and shooting everybody.
But that's something that, like, I feel like they didn't really... They didn't say that, right? They didn't tell you that.
What?
Well,
to shoot everyone?
For instance, like the flags above the head.
Yes.
That
there's
means
camps.
that, yeah. So that means that, because there's some that aren't camps, that
Yeah.
you don't really get anything, or you don't really get anything good. And then they also don't tell you that when you get to year 2, that there's a not a final boss, the slime boss. If you don't have crops, the slimes are going to attack you. And the first year it didn't do that. So there's so many things fighting-wise that they don't explain to you.
Oh yeah. As you're going through the years, obviously there's 10 years, and the years indicate the difficulty. And every time you're going up a year, I liked the difficulty of this game. I felt like it was nicely paced. Not like Dead Cells, where like once you kind of beat the first run, you're going for the next difficulty. It got super hard. In this, I felt like it was a really nice pace of bullets are slowly getting faster. Enemies are shooting maybe a little bit more bullets. Some of the enemies interact a little bit different. I enjoyed the difficulty of going up in the years. But yeah, I agree, Liz. It would have been nice to see like, hey, in year 2, this is what happens. In year 6, this is what happens. Because eventually you're starting to get like random things thrown at you, and you just gotta learn.
Go back for a second.
Okay.
Because lately you've been like, wow, your dodging has gotten so good. Like, you're doing so good. And that's all. Then, like, we start recording and you're like, Liz, you suck.
No, I said at first.
No, you didn't say it first. You're like, oh, your playing makes me so nauseous. It's like you were just complimenting me like an hour before we started recording.
You have gotten so much better. I just said at the beginning, you did not know how to do a twin stick shoot, and it was making me nauseous.
No, I just didn't do it the right way. I was still doing it, and I was,
And I've also, you told me not to watch you play because
I get so nervous, and I do really bad. I just run into bugs, and
you yell at me, blame me.
No.
I mean, why not? See, one of the nice aspects that I liked about this too, and I don't know if it's something that makes it more or less roguelite, but what I like is the character progression outside of just your individual runs. So as you go through each of the maps, a lot of times you're looking for just these different camps where you free these like ants, and each of the ants has different upgrades that you can do for that, like, carry over permanently for your character. And so I think that probably helps, I feel like, in terms of the overall progression. I mean, it doesn't help me a ton because I'm still in year 3, but I'm guessing for you, Andrew, that was probably one of the things that helped, because as things are slowly getting more difficult, you're slowly getting stronger with them.
Yeah, specifically there's one ant, and unfortunately he ended up being the last one I found because it's random. There's one ant that actually improves your starter gun, and it helped me so much more being able to improve my starter gun and actually the gun being useful right at the beginning.
I can't find these ants. I found one, but he's just like, he's the mushroom guy.
Yeah.
And I want to find the other ones, and no matter how much I explore, I'm not finding them.
The mushroom's probably the least helpful ant. But
yeah.
I do love the aspect of like these ants that, carry over and improve all your runs, because it was cool. There is a like main hub world where you have like a main farm, and as you are improving it, it actually looks nicer. They're actually building a house for you. They're building pathways. And so it's kind of cool seeing this progression. Granted, it's just cosmetic, but it was at least nice to see. And even too, when you're playing on harder difficulties, your overall like farm is looking, healthier too. I like this cosmetic progression.
Well, so you said you haven't beat year 10 yet, right? But you're on it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, and I bet you I could go look it up on Google if I wanted to, but I'm wondering if there's like some sort of ending credit scene for when you beat year 10, because I did notice that it was improving, and without them telling any story, I almost felt like that was sort of the storyline, is that each year you made it through, you were kind of slowly rebuilding the farm, because I noticed it just by default gets nicer when you go to the higher years, at least from 1 to 3. And then you get all these home improvements too. So I'm wondering if there's like some end credit scene where they like, W King of the nuclear wasteland or whatever.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, but unfortunately I wasn't able to beat in time.
You suck.
Sorry, Mr. Can't get past year 3.
I got real close a couple times. I just start to get really, really gutsy, and I'm like, I've got a fully upgraded gun. I'm just gonna cruise through this, and then I almost do what Liz was doing by mistake and pull half the entire camps on me. And I go, oh crap, this is bad.
So Liz mentioned a little bit how there's 5 playable characters, and I really enjoyed the characters in this game, because that's the thing that really kind of shook up the gameplay for me. Each character has like its own kind of special play style. as Liz said, you have Lavender. She's more focused on crops. They grow faster. You have Rye, who's really more focused on combat because he has a higher chance of keeping his gun. You have Robusta, who is just a challenge character. He increases the speed of the game, so it makes it so much more difficult. You have Dandelion, who's, of course, a lion, but he's really good at farming. Like, he starts with the most perks, and he can fly, but he's hard to control. And then my favorite one is the fifth one, who's Thyme, Thyme, and she has just the longest amount of daytime that she can play in, but her negative thing is if she gets hit, you lose 20 seconds of your day. But she was the reason why I was able to just beat so much more of this game. But I loved the diversity of these characters, and that's for me what really shook up the gameplay. Because, there are a ton of perks and stuff that can go around and, kind of help you. But even if I wasn't finding the perks I wanted, like, I never felt like, oh, I need to stop this run. I'm not getting this perk. Like, I kind of do in other roguelikes. But
oh, no, I did that.
Like,
because for me, it was like, there are some times, I think I've only done it like twice, which I've played a lot of this game, so that really isn't anything. But there was like one run that I just could not get any chickens. I could not get any till spells. And so for me, just like gardening was just awful.
Yeah, that happened to me sometimes, and it made the run difficult, but it never made me like, oh, this is a guaranteed lose. Because out of all the perks you can get, there's like one that's kind of negative. It's only good if you have things to complement it. But the perk literally makes more weeds on your farm. And normally that is awful because weeds you have to dig them up and it takes forever. But there's like tons of perks where weeds become flowers, or, you can actually harvest weeds for, money. But I just had that and I had no chickens. So like literally my entire farm is weeds. But even then I still end up beating that run. Like, and that's what I liked. Like, compared to another roguelike we did, Neon Abyss, there was a handful of perks that honestly just made your run suck. But in this, I don't know. I felt like I could still manage myself well.
I think health-wise, like there were some times where I was down to 1 heart, and I was able to get it back up.
Yeah.
So I didn't really worry about that. I just thought if I got like halfway through the year and it just felt like work, I was done. Well, I only did it a couple times, but like if it's that bad, like why not?
I don't know. I felt like if the run was going bad enough, I was probably just going to die anyways. And I think that's part of how I go through just about any roguelike game. But
that's how I go through life.
Yeah, pretty much. If I do bad enough, I'm probably just going to die. So I don't know. I'll do my best. But seriously though, I don't know. I just never found a point where I needed to quit from a run, I guess, even if I wasn't getting the chickens, because at the end of the day, or at the end of the year, I guess, it doesn't really matter if you fully go with the well-fed. Yeah, you lose out on a couple cornucopias, which are the currency you use in the outer world to upgrade or make your permanent upgrades. So it does stink to lose that, but it's not a huge deal at the end of the day. The most important thing really is just trying to get through the run. Especially
I also feel like I feel like it's not a huge deal to like end it though either. Because for me, it's like if I'm not having fun with it, like I mean, I'm probably not gonna beat year 2. I mean, the 2 times that I did it, it was in year 2, and I really haven't progressed far into year 2 because I suck. But for me, that's why I don't mind quitting, because it's like if I'm still not at the level yet where I'm gonna beat the level, then I might as well just have like the most amount of joy with the game.
I mean, I'm not criticizing by any means either. I'm just saying I personally didn't play like that.
Later on, it does actually kind of punish you to quit early. There's another ant you get called the Historian Ant, and he rewards you for more like months, more seasons you've survived, and how many like runs you've survived.
Oh.
So, yeah, you can carry over some perks from previous runs you've did, but if you quit or lose, you don't get any reward. So I didn't care for that aspect of like the gameplay of like improving, because it just, I don't know, it felt weird.
Because why even have the option to quit the run?
Yeah, and then just get punished. I don't know. I thought that was a weird gameplay design, but it didn't affect the run that much.
I mean, what I was doing for that was if I was trying to beat, my highest tier, and I think this is partly why I wasn't going through as quickly, because I wasn't always focusing on year 3, but I would go back and do a year 1 run just so I could build up all of those things, get a good build, carry some of that nice stuff over, and then start a year 3 run with a boost.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, so that's the one aspect of it that I get. I get what you're saying about, if you quit or you end up dying early, you kind of lose out on the whole aspect of the ant. But there's easy ways around that.
So I want to ask you guys, out of all those, we've played obviously a ton of roguelikes. How difficult do you think this game was compared to others?
I think just difficult enough. So it's hard in its own way. It has its struggles, but I never felt like frustrated. Like, no, I just can't get past this. This is too hard. Like Dead Cells, immediately after the first round, I was like, I'm never gonna do this. I'm never moving past that.
Yeah.
Even like Slay the Spire, sometimes I think the highest I have is like an Ascension 2. And like I barely got there. I limped into it. So like even those games I feel like I struggle with it, but I don't know, this just feels manageable. I feel like I'm gonna get there if I just keep trying.
See, I never, with any of these games, I never expect myself to beat one, to do well. I just play it because I think it's fun. So I don't have any pressure whatsoever to get far in any of these games. So for me, like this one, I actually don't think it's one of the easier ones that we've played, because I do feel like it is so tedious at the beginning that it feels more like a struggle than some of the other ones that we've played. Now, like many hours into it, I feel a little differently, but I still feel like if you have a good run, you start the farm all over again, it sucks.
Yeah.
I would much rather start over in Dead Cells and Slay the Spire and all of those, because you get it, and no matter what, like you're gonna get excited to play another run of Slay the Spire. But with this game, it's like no, you could just have like a rough time. So I think this one's a bit harder.
I actually found this one not easier, but I felt like the difficulty was a perfect like middle, because with 10 difficulty like levels, I felt like it was so well paced. Like I think I beat year one in two or three tries, so I didn't think it was like too difficult. Like the gameplay is very similar to another roguelike we did of Enter the Gungeon, of like a twin stick shooter, and like I kind of think back to that game, and I remember it took me so long for me just to get to the end boss. But in this one, I was like, I felt like it was like well paced. And then it was by like year 4 when I was really had like a slowdown, and then I slowly started chipping away at the ears. I don't know. I thought it was nicely paced. There's a lot you have to learn with the game, but once you kind of learn, you just need to learn the skill of dodging bullets, which I didn't think was too hard because I thought everything was well telegraphed in this game. Bullets always look the same. They're like these giant yellow balls. And the only thing that kind of annoyed me, some enemies can touch you and it doesn't hurt you, but some enemies touch you and it does hurt you.
Yeah.
And so I wish there was a way to, like, it telegraphed that.
I think also the moles. I would just get so into farming, and one would just come up right under me and hit me, and I just get so enraged.
Which is another thing, the game doesn't explain, so it caught me off guard. The only way your plants can die is that they actually get eaten, which is either by a slug or by these little flies, or they can burn. But bullets don't affect them. So it always annoyed me when they're like, oh, it's daytime, your crops are safe. So I'm like, sweet, I could just farm, nothing's going to bother me. But then there's these random moles that pop up and shoot you. And it just drove me insane.
Yeah, I think sometimes I feel like I got bullets lost in big fights.
Yeah, which always happens in games.
Well, and part of it is, and I guess the ones that it would bother me is like when you're trying to farm mid-fight, which you have to, at least in the final boss fight, because I would be trying to do all this and all these like explosions are happening around of you harvesting crops, and then there's just bullets kind of sneaking through. But yeah, it's the one thing that, well, and it's the biggest thing too that I struggle with, that if I did, I would be much better at these games, is I lose track of bullets just constantly. Like I just focus too much on what's like in front of my character as I move forward, or where I'm aiming my gun. I forget to worry about what's happening behind me, and like something sneaks up on me.
Yeah, that final boss where you're growing the crops, I remember the time that I beat him, Andrew was watching me. I got down to 1 health. Yeah. And I was like, Andrew, I lost. And he's explaining to me that you have to kill the smaller enemies that are in the blast zones to get more seeds. And so I was able to recover and actually beat him. And that was like the greatest feeling. Because like when I hit the 1 heart, I was like, well, I'm going to lose. And then I actually did. I had the thing that revives me.
Yeah, you had the perk, and so that's why I told you, I'm like, no, calm down. You actually could come.
And I'm like, if I get hit one more time, I'm done. And he still had half health, and it was, oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever beaten a boss and felt that excited though.
Oh, you screamed. You were so excited.
Yeah. So for how much I've said oh, it's tedious and blah blah blah, I don't remember feeling that way about beating a boss in any other game. That felt so good.
No, I think that's understandable. It took me I think my second try, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. How do I attack him? And then, because again, it doesn't give you any explanation. The only tell you have. So the answer is you damage the boss by harvesting crops, and the only tell that it has is when you harvest them, they kind of float towards him. And that's about it. That's sort of how I figured it out. But yeah, it's other than that, it can be a really hit or miss fight, because if you prep well for that fight, you can basically win it in 10 seconds or less. But if you don't go into that fight prepared, it is a slog of a fight. And I think you said it only gets worse in the higher years, right, Andrew?
Yeah. Actually, no, in the higher years, the boss didn't do anything different. He just has more health. And so, yeah, the final boss fight can either be super quick or super long. The final boss fight is always the same. At the end of every year, you have the chance of 1 to 2 bosses, but the very final boss is always the same. And yeah, as we're saying, you beat him by farming and harvesting crops, and the crops fly to the boss and hit him. So if you plan for the final fight and come in with a bunch of spells, you can finish the fight in 20 seconds. It's super quick, less than 20 seconds. I beat him, I think, in 5.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, because I had things that just instantly grew my crops, and I just sent it to him and I killed him right away. But yeah, if you are not prepared, it is a very long fight and it can be really boring. But I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think of the boss fights? Because Liz had a unique strategy for most of them.
What?
Your strategy was just to run and hide until they left.
No, there was some for some reason the worm really. I struggled with him.
Oh, I hate the worm.
But there's some that I always killed. I always killed the slug. I always killed the sun guy. So I feel like it was more if I was super low health, why risk it? Because you just get fertilizer.
Yeah, you did not get. Well,
so
you can get more rewards from bosses, but yeah, at the beginning.
Yeah, at the beginning, you there isn't much. So for me, it's if I'm low health, why take that chance for fertilizer?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I saw it.
I don't actually have any issue with that. There was at least 1-2 times that happened by accident that I just couldn't find the mushroom boss, and so I just ran out of time. But I do agree with you. The worm is the worst. It had no real rhyme or reason to how it moved or how it could move, why it moved. It kind of sucked to fight. So
yeah, its hitbox is weird.
Yeah, so I definitely can see where you're coming from, Liz, on that. The only issue I had or why I didn't like trying to do that, is I just got bored, because then you're just running around for 3 minutes, and I just got bored doing that, because I'm like, well, now I just want to do something, so I guess I'm just going to shoot this boss here, because why not? But I also hated Old MacDonald.
Old MacDonald was my least favorite boss. He just was not fun.
I don't know if I got him.
You did. He was the tractor.
Oh, see, the first time I fought him, I hated him, but then I didn't think he was that bad.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I also think too, it really depends on what gun you go into it. I mean, obviously you don't know what boss you're gonna get. It took me forever to realize that stupid calendar was there, and I knew the 3-day cycle and stuff. That was embarrassing. But yeah, so for me, honestly, most of the bosses, I liked the longer range weapons. But I mean, for me, it's all about the weapon that I have.
Your lack of observation gets me every time. I love it. Every time I'm you have spells on the right. You're where? I don't see it. There's literally a pigeon on the right side of the screen holding a scroll, telling you what spell you have. And I'm no, let's select the other spell. And you're just using all your spells. When
I was little, I really wanted to be a detective when I grew up.
I know.
I can see that.
Not a servant. Anytime we go on walks, if it wasn't for me, she would have stepped in miles of poop. It blows my mind how unobservant you are. And every time I'm oh, there's an animal over there, Liz, check it out. And you're where is it? Where is it? 20 minutes later, it just runs away. And I'm never mind.
Cute.
Yeah. So for me, think my two favorite guns, or I'll say three, was actually I liked the Spud rifle because it was fully auto, it got good damage, and you never had to reload it. And I liked the Gatling gun because it had a really big clip, did a lot of damage.
Gatling gun. It's not a Gatling gun. It's a Gatling gun.
Oh, sorry, the Gatling
Gotta
gun.
use the pun.
Dang. So the Gatling gun, because it's just
farming.
It's a big old clip and it's very strong. And then what's the grenade launcher one?
The biodegrader.
Yeah, the biodegrader. So those are my top three. What about you guys?
I like those ones. The Gatling gun was amazing unless you were swarmed by enemies. If you had a boss that just sent so many minions, it slowed you down the way that you walked. So shooting and walking sucked when you were in a situation like that.
Yeah,
but I did love it
quite significantly.
I also like the Jackrabbit 12. I did not try, because Andrew said they were awful, the butcher's knife or the flying squirrels.
Yeah, those weapons suck.
Hated the rusty SMG. I hated it.
The Rusty SMG is good if you can upgrade it, but yeah, if you get the base Rusty SMG, it's awful.
But I usually get it at the beginning, I feel like.
Yeah.
I know it's random, but I always got that option at the beginning where you can't upgrade it. And I think it's called like the spray and pray, the little subtitle. And it really was just like bullets going everywhere you didn't want them to go.
Yeah.
It's super close range too.
The Gatling gun was my favorite because it could melt things, and especially bosses. It just had the quickest time to kill for monsters, and I loved it. My second favorite was the biodegrader because if you can upgrade it, it can leave fire behind, which is really great at just clearing out a lot of the planes. But its reload took way too long. And then my third favorite gun was...
I like the Sriracha Soaker. I forgot about that one.
The Sriracha Soaker, I thought was okay. The only thing I didn't like about the Sriracha Soaker, it's a flamethrower, but it shot so many flames that bullets could hide in the flames, and I would end up getting hit because I couldn't see bullets.
I liked it that you could water the crops though.
That part was really nice with it.
Yeah, if you're struggling with spells and you have a lot of money, like you can upgrade that and use that to water your plants.
My third favorite gun though, I can't remember the name of it. It was the double barrel shotgun.
The shallot gun.
The shallot gun, that's right. Because I liked that one because it had the option. It had a perk where it could shoot in front of you and behind you. And then it also had a perk where it leaves toxic spores behind. So you could literally just pepper the entire field of just toxic gas and just... It was so good at defending my farm and so good at clearing out the mobs out in the wilderness.
Yeah, that one would probably tie for the biodegrader for me.
Yeah, but once again, its reload was awful.
Yeah. No, I hated the Sriracha Soaker for like the reason you were saying, Andrew, but even fully upgraded, it didn't do a ton of damage. It was just really good if you needed to water your crops. But outside of that, I don't know. I didn't like it. I thought the clip was too small, the reload was too slow, and it didn't do enough damage.
See, I noticed I liked the weapons in this game because I felt like they were kind of designed for the biomes. So it's 4 biomes. You know, when you on your farm, you have northeast, south, and west that are different biomes. You know, north you got winter, right you got the plains, south you got the jungle, and west you got
desert.
Desert, yeah. And I like they always had the same kind of creatures, so you kind of knew what you were going to fight when you got to those areas. Like if you go south, the jungle has a ton of tiny little bugs. So if you have a gun that can have a ton of bullets, or the SMG where it just literally sprays bullets everywhere, you're going to do better in that biome. But if you go somewhere like to the left, to the desert, you're fighting monsters with like stronger health, but they shoot more bullets. So you need a gun that's fast and also has good range. So I enjoyed the weapons. I thought like it really kind of worked with each biome, different biomes.
And I also knew like where I was going to go next, so that always helped.
Yeah, you can kind of plan out what you're doing.
I don't disagree with you, but I don't think I ever really strategized that way. I just looked at whatever gun was available.
Oh, really?
Which one?
Whatever was good, yeah.
Yeah, whichever I liked more between the two options, and I just went with it. Because I don't know. I think as a whole, if you can upgrade them, any gun is really viable in just about any area.
Not your pea shooter. Your pea shooter sucks in the jungle, or it sucks in the...
I'm talking about guns that you can buy.
Well, you didn't say that. You said every gun. So,
okay, of the guns that you can purchase, which is the only gun that's not the pea shooter, Andrew, is yes, they're all viable if you're able to upgrade them.
Even the butcher's knife and the squirrel, because those guns suck.
I mean, in that case, I probably would have just kept my pea shooter.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, quite honestly, because again, they wouldn't be bad guns if they had a bigger clip, no reload whatsoever, or reloaded faster. Any one of those three things would have made it a much more valuable gun.
Yeah.
I also kind of wish that there was more to the biomes. Like, I felt like they looked the same. You
Yes.
have the different bushes for what is it, fruit?
Yeah, there's berry bushes you can collect that are like free money.
But yeah, the look of the enemy doesn't really change too much. I mean, you will always see like the rabbits and the little bugs and stuff. So for me, it's like make the biomes more vibrant and look better, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is, getting into graphics here is kind of what I wanted to go with. So this game has 4 seasons, 4 different biomes, but as Liz said, because I agree with you, Liz, none of it looks different.
There's a snowman, so I know it's winter, but
yeah,
it's
the
like
winter one's the only one that actually had snow.
But you can have like gorgeous like snow-covered pine trees and like
It did a little, but not really. The
No.
plains are very empty.
I said gorgeous. I didn't just say pine
sorry.
trees.
They were just ugly pine trees.
No, they weren't ugly, but like for me, they didn't really set the mood.
It didn't, yeah. And Liz wants to be mood set all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not in the mood, why am I even playing Xbox? It seems weird.
But yeah, it felt weird with the seasons. I'm like, I'd be playing and I'm like, what season am I in? Unless I looked in the top right and actually saw like what season I'm in, there's no way you could tell.
Yeah, I do wish they put more attention to that, and like instead of those biomes, like I almost wish there was like, I don't know, like 6 random different biomes that weren't even like area based, that it would just sort of rotate and randomize what it put out there, but then the seasons actually just changed with them. Even if the biomes were a little bit more samey, but they did more with changing from season to season, I think I would have appreciated the season change more than anything.
See, I don't care that they didn't change like the different biomes. I mean, I wish it was just graphically they changed. I will say I enjoyed that. North is like always the winter one. East is always the plains. I like that because to me, I didn't feel like this game was so heavy on the random number generator. Like, oh, I'm just going to lose this round because everything's just set wrong for me. To me, I felt like this game was so much more skill because it is kind of the same areas. But I just wish graphically, because, I agree with you, Liz, there's quite a bit of this game that can be tedious. And for me, graphically, it was very tedious.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's also, if you are only going to have those 4 biomes, it should be spectacular.
Yeah.
Like for me, like you have all these like different weapons, but you're still like planting this in the same area.
Yeah, vegetables
there's
aren't
so much sameness that like I feel like that was very missed.
Yeah, like vegetables aren't limited to certain seasons. You can plant any vegetable at any time and anywhere.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too.
Yeah. So it's literally just the seasons. Literally is just a means of showing your progression and how far you are in your run. So yeah, I was slightly disappointed in the graphics. I liked the monster designs. I thought they were kind of cool. I think it's kind of funny. You're fighting
the way they bounced.
These bunnies. The which one?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the plants. The way they.
Oh, the plants I thought were kind of cool because all the plants are like mutated looking.
Yeah, and they bounce when they're ready, so
Yeah.
you know when they're.
So I liked the design of a lot of the enemies, but once again, this is another kind of pixely game. So graphic wise, I just thought this was okay.
Yeah, it's good enough, I guess. It's nothing fantastic. They definitely don't or didn't have the means to put more into the biomes and kind of make them more unique. But outside of that, it worked, and yeah, I really liked those little characters, like you said. They were kind of funny. I liked the bison.
The beast, yeah. I liked kind of the play on words on a lot of things. That's why I wish there was an encyclopedia. I would love to see like the names of the different bunnies. One thing I did love, I thought the music and the sound effects of this game were actually a lot of fun.
Oh, I thought those got tedious.
For
me, I liked it until like I heard too much of it.
I heard a lot of it, but to me, it was like a sweet spot. This isn't something I'm going to pull up on Spotify and listen on my way to work, but it was fun. To me, it always had me smiling. The music, when it would kick in, I loved it.
Yeah,
and I thought it was cute when the plants are ready. They kind of make a cheery noise.
Yeah, I agree. I think the music was awesome, and you said it best. I'm not going to listen to the music by itself, but in the context of the game, in the gameplay, it always fit. And I liked how it changed when you were going into a boss fight. I think it even changed just for like the little biome tree monsters, which
It did.
so you had like this changing of music just slightly enough at all times. It changed. I think that was one of the only things that did change season to season.
But it doesn't matter if like so for me, like if I got sick of it, I could just play music. Because
Yes.
yeah, it does change if like the boss is coming or whatever, but you know what's happening.
Yeah.
You see the bullets, you know. For me, like it wasn't necessary, so I listened to it until I got sick of it, and then I played music.
Yeah, because I can confirm as well, like I played a good chunk of this game with no sound, and it didn't affect my gameplay at all. So that is one thing I love about this music. It's to me, it was very fun and enjoyable to listen to, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, I can see it not being necessary, but my favorite part of it, and I never got sick of it, was at the end of every year, the little festival music.
Yep.
It was fun, and
It was.
and I always liked it, and I wouldn't sit for long and like enjoy it and bask in it, but sometimes
I don't know.
I would
It
sit
makes you
for
feel
dancing
like you
in
did a
the
good
room.
job.
No, I would, yeah, and I would sit around for an extra 30 seconds or so, like, oh, this is really fun.
For any people who are just getting into this game, do you guys have any quick tips that you wish you knew right at the beginning?
I think the tips that you gave me about not planting the first day because you're not getting enough money for a gun anyway, or at least, you know, it'd be harder to. That really helped. Just go and get the stuff the first day. I don't know. I feel like we went over so many tips.
One of my biggest tips I wish I knew at the beginning is, you know, if you have heart seeds, which, you know, give you health if you end up getting hit, it's actually still very important to plant those heart seeds and pick them up even if you're full health. If you overheal, you actually increase the amount of overall health you get.
Which I didn't know that for the longest time.
Yeah,
that was
so
so
it's-
helpful.
Yeah, so it's very important if you have heart seeds to still plant them. And if you are at max health and you have heart seeds, it's best to do a 4x4 grow with them and make a super heart, because that'll give you a lot of extra health.
I'm fairly certain that you actually increase your heart bar even when you're not at full health.
No, you don't. I tried this a couple times and it doesn't work. You have to overheal.
All right, I could have sworn I saw it going up. That little thing.
I'm like 95% sure.
I'm going to check it again tonight. I'm going to prove you wrong.
All right. Do you have any tips, Keith?
I mean, what Liz said, and we had said earlier, is that just don't waste your time farming on the first day. You're not going to find anything good enough on the farm. Go out and fight for it.
And then, of course, getting into the last segment, for achievements, I do not recommend this game for achievement
It
hunters.
sucked. I put in so many hours. I got two achievements, 150 out of 1600. Andrew got 14 out of 21, 1000, and Keith 850, and you got 11 achievements. But yeah, 150 gamer score, and I put so many hours.
Yeah, there's not a lot of achievements, so they are almost all of them are worth like 100 gamer score, which is great.
They're very grindy.
Yes, they do take a lot of time.
Yeah, it's either grinding or you just got to focus and kind of not worry about. I mean, you can worry about winning a run and doing some of them, but if you, like, for instance, one of them's killing 100 of the bison in one run, you can more or less probably do it just in the course of the run. But if you are actively seeking out bison, it can definitely chew up a lot of time in your runs that you kind of just
Wait, what?
don't focus on it. But yeah, the achievements aren't great. They're the little flying bisons. Yeah, they're bisons, but they're bees, so they're bison.
Oh, you guys mentioned it earlier,
Yeah,
and I was
a herd
like...
would always randomly go by when you're in the
No,
plants.
I know what it is now. I didn't know that they were called that.
Yeah, they're bison.
Fun little play on words.
Yeah, the achievements, you get them like kind of the same ones as you get in most roguelikes, like, you know, beat a run without getting hit, you know, only use your starter gun the entire run. So there are a lot that just take work. But I will say the nice thing about the achievements is they are not limited to difficulty unless it specifically says, like, you know, beat year 10. That's obviously you have to beat year 10. But majority of the achievements you can do in year 1. So once you actually start getting your character really, like, built up from the cornucopias and you have upgrades, some of these achievements are very easy to get once you actually are strong enough. But yes, it still will take you a lot of time, so I don't recommend it for achievement hunters.
Yeah, and it's not even very fun achievements either. I mean,
No, it's
outside of
not.
the gameplay is fun, so get the achievements while you're playing them, and it's fun. But yeah, there's nothing really like neat or unique that you have to do.
But for the time to beat this game, it's obviously kind of inaccurate. But just to kind of beat the main story, which I'm assuming means to beat just year 1, you're looking at like 7 hours. I don't think that's very accurate because, like I said, I beat it in 2 tries. But to 100% this game, you're looking at like 32 hours to beat all the years. So this game will take some time. But if you are just looking for something simple that you just kind of want to play a little bit, you can do a run. Yeah, it won't take you too long. I don't think the runs were too terribly long. I felt like it was a nice sweet spot of, not too quick but not too long. But I did want to kind of go into a little bit of some bugs. Nothing crazy. So I'm playing on the Series X. There was a handful of times my animals would just be stuck. Like they wouldn't move. They would be running in place but wouldn't do anything.
Are you sure they just weren't lazy? Because my farm animals would be very lazy sometimes.
No, they were legitimately running in place and stuck. It eventually fixed itself, which was nice. But yeah, there was a couple runs I had, and I just ended up having no animals because they were just stuck. Then I also had the glitch. It luckily fixed itself too. You can save and quit a run when you're at the main city. And it specifically says quit, and it says an asterisk saying, save your run for later. And anytime I did it, it would delete my run. I couldn't save, and I don't know what happened. And eventually it finally fixed itself, but there was a handful of times I wasn't saving my game. Were you guys having any of these issues?
No, because you told me about that, so then I didn't quit mid-run.
I don't think I ever really quit many mid-runs. I mean, I'm sure I did a couple times, but I don't think I did it.
Well, I remember I asked you, Keith, and you were like, oh, the helicopter should be flying, and it should say continue, but it never said continue for me.
And that's the thing. Like, if it did, I didn't notice it, I guess is probably the thing. Because unless I was really... Because, if I got far enough into a run that I thought I had a chance at beating it, I was gonna keep going. But if I didn't think I was gonna beat it, then I might be like, yeah, I'll hop over something else because you might have wanted to play something or whatever. But I didn't run into that. Again, unless I was just completely unobservant and didn't notice my animals not doing anything, I'm fairly certain I never saw that happen either.
So, like I said, they at least fixed themselves in the end, and I only saw them a couple of times. So luckily, this game isn't too buggy. But getting into our final thoughts. For me, I love the Atomicrops. I'm with Liz where I first was playing this. I was like, this just seems like another roguelike, and just they try to throw in a farming simulator aspect to it that doesn't work well. But once I started to see the moving parts and learned how this game worked, because it does not explain anything to you, and you just got to learn trial by fire here. So be prepared. But once you actually kind of figure things out, this game is a ton of fun. It is a bit tedious. You are seeing a lot of the same things, same biomes and everything, but I was really enjoying my time in this game. I thought the difficulty was just perfect, that I wasn't getting so frustrated that I was throwing my controller across the room. It always had me going back for more.
Have you ever done that?
Throw a controller across the room? Maybe once or twice. I will say, I'm very proud of myself. I like to say I don't think I have much gamer age.
Well, if you throw your controller once or twice.
I was younger. I can't remember what game it was, but I remember I did it once or twice back in the 360 days, but those controllers could handle it, so they never broke.
Yeah.
But no, I never would. Maybe it was during a competitive game, but no. If I ever get angry in a game, it's when I stop playing it, because games are supposed to be relaxing. But anyway, back to my review, Liz. Yeah, Atomicrops is a lot of fun. Graphic-wise, I didn't think it was great. I enjoyed the music. The gameplay is it's a lot of fun. It's a very unique roguelike. So for me, I'm going to give it an 83. I enjoyed my time with it. Probably won't pick it back up again after this, but I had a lot of fun with it this week.
So I'm going to agree that I absolutely love Atomicrops. I think it's a ton of fun. I play a lot of roguelites. I search these games out. There's just something to me that I enjoy, the aspect of them, the randomness of it, and just it's always the same. I know what to expect, but it's always just that little bit different, and I appreciate that. And it's like a comfort spot for me. So but what Atomicrops does is just the little small things that I just don't see. You don't see in the other games. The resource management so much as the farming aspect. It's just fun, and like you said, Andrew, the graphics I don't care much for them, but the music is fantastic. It never felt over the top or annoying. I think I give this game a 90.
I'm gonna give it an 80. I just wanted more. So the biomes that we were talking about earlier, although I will say I think that the graphics could have been worse. They were better than I thought they would be. I was just happy it wasn't a pixel type kind of deal. But I thought a lot of stuff was cute, but the farming just got a little tedious sometimes, especially if you were just having a crap run. And looking at Metacritic, 75, and for users, TBD. So, a critic that gave it 65 said permadeath feels a little out of sorts with the idea of growing things. And I feel like a lot of people actually love the uniqueness of this game, and that's kind of like as harsh as it got in the
I feel like that's a weird thing to say too.
Yeah, I didn't think that permadeath is too out of place.
No,
But
well, with growing things, it is kind of weird.
a little bit.
Where you're growing a farm, and then you just have to start all over. I think that is kind of weird, but
A little bit. I can see. Once again, Liz, you are the lowest score again.
this is
I know. But you know what? I had to factor in like how long it took me to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I also feel like I put so much time into the game this week. So I definitely ended up really liking it.
Yeah.
But I feel like every week I'm like, I want more.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. And I promise next week we are not doing a roguelike. You know, we're going to take a break from this genre for a while. So don't worry. We're going to be playing different games coming up. If you have a game suggestion, please email us at gamepassgrabbag@gmail.com. We are also on Facebook, Game Pass Grab Bag, and Twitter, GPGBpod. So please come by, say hi, and if you feel so inclined, please give us a review. We haven't had a review in a while, so that would help us out a lot. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you again to our recent donations. Thank you guys who are out there supporting us. You know, we greatly appreciate it. We're going to keep trying to do better for you guys. You know, we love you guys. But I've been your Hardcore Gamer host Stage. You can find me on Xbox Live at Firebird01952.
And I've been Keith, and I've been farming the day away.
And I'm Liz the Noob, gamertag come on, I'm Dean, and I'm on Twitter at Liz the Noob, NoobBusyW.
Thank you all so much. And if you also see Keith, congratulate him on his new engagement.
Aw.
Woo!
Thanks, guys.
But we'll see you all again next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.